Commander John Miller looked out the viewport of the starship Freedom as the blue glow of Earth faded behind them. The year was 2157, and humanity had finally developed reliable interstellar travel. After decades of preparation and discussion, the United Nations Space Coalition had selected John to lead mankind's first diplomatic mission to meet alien life. Nervous? Lisa Wright asked, floating up beside him. The ship's xenobiologist had a calm way about her that John appreciated. Would be crazy not to be, John replied with a small smile. He had spent 20 years in the Navy before this mission, but nothing could prepare someone for first contact. Final checks complete, Commander called Alan Peterson from his engineering station. FTL drive is green across the board. John nodded. Sam, send the message to Earth. Let them know we're proceeding as planned. Sam Garcia, their communications specialist, tapped at his console. Message sent, sir. We're good to go. John took a deep breath. All right, team, this is it. Initiating FTL jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched into lines as the Freedom accelerated beyond light speed toward the coordinates they had received 6 months ago in humanity's first alien transmission. 3 days later, they arrived at the edge of a massive space station. It looked like a metal flower with dozens of petal-shaped docks extending from a central hub. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it. My God, whispered Lisa. It's beautiful. And huge, added Alan. That thing must be 10 miles across. A signal chimed on Sam's console. Commander, we're receiving a transmission. They're welcoming us and providing docking instructions. John straightened his uniform. Follow their guidance. Let's not keep our host waiting. The Freedom docked smoothly at one of the smaller petals. Through the viewport, John could see strange creatures gathering to watch their arrival. Remember your training, John told his crew as they gathered by the airlock. No sudden movements. Follow diplomatic protocols. We're representing all of humanity today. The airlock hissed open, revealing 3 tall, thin aliens with pale blue skin and 4 arms each. They wore flowing robes covered in strange symbols. Welcome to Central Station, humans, the middle alien said in perfect English. I am Director Xal of the Galactic Confederacy Diplomatic Corps. We have been studying your transmissions to learn your language. John stepped forward and bowed slightly. Thank you for your welcome, Director. I am Commander John Miller of Earth. This is my team. Dr. Lisa Wright, Engineer Alan Peterson, and Communications Specialist Sam Garcia. The aliens looked at each other with what seemed like confusion. One of them whispered something to Director Xal. Is something wrong? John asked. No, Xal replied quickly. We are simply surprised. Your physical forms are quite different from what we expected. Different how? Lisa asked, her scientific curiosity taking over. You appear rather fragile, Xal said carefully. Most spacefaring species have developed thick exoskeletons, multiple redundant organs, or other physical adaptations for survival in harsh environments. John tried not to show his surprise. Humans have adapted in different ways. We're more versatile than we look. Of course, Xal said politely, but John could tell the alien didn't believe him. Please, follow me to the council chamber. The representatives of the Confederacy's 28 member species are eager to meet you. As they walked through the station, aliens of all shapes and sizes stopped to stare at them. Some had 6 legs, others had scales or feathers. One massive creature looked like a walking rock with glowing eyes. They're treating us like we might break, Sam whispered as they passed a group of muscular, reptilian beings who stepped carefully out of their way. Let them think what they want, John replied quietly. We're here to make friends, not prove anything. The council chamber was a giant room with raised platforms arranged in a circle. Aliens of all descriptions sat watching as the humans entered. Esteemed council, Xal announced, I present the representatives of Earth, a newly discovered world. A deep voice boomed from one of the platforms. Welcome, humans. The Galactic Confederacy extends its protection to your species. We have reviewed your biology and classified Earth as a Category 3 protected world. You will receive appropriate accommodations for your particular needs. John noticed the patronizing tone, but kept his diplomat smile. We thank the Confederacy for its welcome and look forward to learning from you. As they took their seats in the chamber, Lisa leaned over to John. They think we're weak, she whispered. John nodded slightly. For now, he replied. They'll learn otherwise soon enough. 6 months passed since first contact. Humanity had established Outpost Horizon on the edge of the solar system as a meeting point for trade and cultural exchange. The small station housed 50 crew members and was led by Security Chief Kate Summers, a former police officer from Chicago with 12 years of experience. Kate walked through the station's main corridor, nodding to the mix of human staff and alien visitors. Most aliens still looked at humans with a mix of curiosity and concern, as if expecting them to break at any moment. Chief Summers called Zrek, a rocky Balorian who served as the Confederacy's liaison. Our sensors detected an unregistered ship approaching. They're not responding to hails. Kate frowned. Show me. In the control room, the main screen displayed a rough-looking vessel with burn marks along its hull. Pirates, Zrek said grimly. Vrakan raiders. They target small outposts at the edges of protected space. Notify the Confederacy, Kate ordered. Request immediate assistance. Zrek's rock-like face shifted into what Kate had learned was an expression of worry. The nearest patrol is 3 hours away. The Vrakan will be here in 20 minutes. Kate pressed the station-wide comm button. Attention all personnel. This is Security Chief Summers. We have hostile forces inbound. All civilians proceed to the central shelter. Security team to the armory immediately. She turned to her team of 8 security officers as they gathered. The Vrakan think we're easy targets. Let's prove them wrong. One of the younger officers, Ryan Cole, looked nervous. There are only 9 of us, Chief. And we have home field advantage, Kate replied. Get creative. We need to hold out until help arrives. The team moved quickly, setting up defensive positions. Kate studied the station schematics, looking for weak points and advantages. Chief, called Ben Morris, her deputy. The Vrakan have docked at the east airlock. They're cutting through. Kate nodded. Fall back to position B. Let them in. Let them in. Ben looked shocked. Trust me, Kate said. The security team retreated deeper into the station. Through the cameras, they watched as 12 Vrakan, tall, muscular aliens with red scales and sharp teeth, entered the station. They carried heavy weapons and moved with confidence. Weak humans, their leader growled in broken English. Surrender now. Maybe we let some live. Kate activated the station intercom. This is Security Chief Summers. We have evacuation protocols to discuss. The Vrakan leader laughed. No discussion. You surrender now. I'm afraid we can't do that, Kate replied. Then she nodded to Ryan, who pressed a button on his console. The emergency fire suppression system activated in the east corridor, but instead of fire suppressant, it released a thick cloud of pepper spray that Kate's team had loaded into the system. The Vrakan howled in pain as the irritant hit their sensitive eyes and nostrils. Now, Kate ordered. Her team attacked from both sides of the corridor. The Vrakan, blinded and disoriented, couldn't respond effectively. Kate led from the front, taking down 2 pirates with precise stun bait strikes. 3 Vrakan broke through and ran toward the control room. Kate pursued them while the rest of her team handled the remaining pirates. In the control room, Kate found herself facing the Vrakan leader and 2 others. They were recovering from the pepper spray and looked furious. Human female, the leader snarled. You die slow for this trick. Kate stood her ground, despite being outnumbered. Last chance to surrender. The leader charged. Kate ducked under his swing and rolled to the maintenance panel. She grabbed a pressurized coolant canister, twisted off the safety valve, and threw it at the pirates. The canister spun wildly, spraying supercooled gas. The Vracken's cold-blooded bodies seized up as the temperature plummeted. Kate moved quickly, taking advantage of their slowed reflexes to disarm and restrain all three. By the time Confederacy forces arrived 3 hours later, Kate's team had captured all 12 Vracken without losing a single crew member. The Confederacy commander, a tall insectoid named Captain Vrex, surveyed the captured pirates with disbelief. "You defeated a Vracken raiding party with no casualties?" he asked Kate. "We made do with what we had," she replied simply. Word of the small human outpost that defeated notorious Vracken pirates spread quickly through the galaxy. For the first time, aliens began to wonder if there was more to these soft-skinned creatures than met the eye. That night, as Kate filed her report, Ben brought her a cup of coffee. "The aliens can't stop talking about what happened," he said. "They didn't think we could defend ourselves." Kate smiled slightly. "They're learning." 1 year had passed since humans first met the Galactic Confederacy. The Centennial Games, held every 100 years, were about to begin on the central world of Nexus Prime. All 28 member species would compete in tests of strength, speed, endurance, and skill. As a courtesy, the Confederacy invited Earth to send observers. They did not expect any humans to compete. Jack Bennett stepped off the transport ship and looked around in wonder. A construction worker from Detroit with no special training, Jack had won Earth's lottery to attend the games. He had never seen so many different aliens in one place. "Amazing, isn't it?" asked Diana Foster, the human ambassador's assistant who was showing him around. "Never imagined anything like this," Jack replied, watching a 6-armed alien juggle what looked like glowing stones. They passed a large board displaying information about the different events. Jack stopped to read about the Grand Endurance Trial, a race through 5 different environmental zones. "That looks interesting," he said. Diana laughed. "Also impossible for humans. The race goes through extreme heat, toxic gas zones, and triple gravity sections. Most competitors are specially evolved for harsh environments." Jack frowned. "So no humans are competing in any events?" The Confederacy advised against it. "They're concerned for our safety," Diana explained. "Remember, they still think we're fragile." That evening at the welcome ceremony, Jack watched as aliens from across the galaxy mingled and boasted about their upcoming performances. A tall, muscular alien with thick gray skin bumped into him. "Sorry, little human," the alien said. "Did not see you there. You should be careful. Many big, strong competitors here." Something in Jack's expression must have shown his feelings because the alien laughed. "You look upset. Do not worry. Humans can watch from safe viewing areas." Jack straightened up. "Actually, I think I'll do more than watch." The next morning, Jack stood in line to register for the Grand Endurance Trial. The alien at the registration desk looked at him with all 4 of its eyes. "Human, for endurance trial. This is mistake." "No mistake," Jack said firmly. "I want to compete." The alien made a whistling sound that might have been a sigh. "I must warn you. Many competitors do not finish. Some are injured. Trial is designed for species with natural protections." "I understand the risks," Jack insisted. Word spread quickly that a human had entered the most difficult event. Some aliens found it amusing, others concerning. Ambassador Susan Clark tried to talk Jack out of it. "Jack, this isn't necessary. We're here to build relationships, not prove anything." "With all due respect, Ambassador, maybe it's time we did prove something." On the day of the race, 200 competitors gathered at the starting line. Jack, in his simple environment suit, looked out of place among aliens with natural armor, multiple breathing systems, and enhanced musculature. A huge reptilian competitor named Drac approached Jack. "Human, race goes through fire zone first. Your kind cannot survive such heat." "We'll see," Jack replied calmly. The starting signal sounded, and the competitors surged forward. Jack kept a steady pace as they entered the first zone, where temperatures reached 200 degrees. His environment suit helped, but he still felt the intense heat. 20 competitors immediately dropped out. Jack pressed on, moving methodically. He watched other competitors rush ahead, some already showing signs of exhaustion from their initial sprint. In the toxic zone, Jack relied on his suit's filtration system. The acid fog corroded exposed metal and burned unprotected skin. 30 more competitors withdrew. By the time they reached the triple gravity section, half the field had dropped out. Jack felt like he weighed over 500 pounds. Each step was agony, but humans had evolved on a higher gravity world than many species in the Confederacy. Jack pushed forward while others collapsed around him. In the cold zone, temperatures plunged to minus 100 degrees. Jack's suit could barely cope, but he kept moving to generate heat. More competitors fell behind. The final zone was a maze filled with shifting obstacles. Jack's smaller size became an advantage as he navigated narrow passages that larger aliens couldn't fit through. Jack didn't win. He finished 23rd out of the 31 competitors who completed the course. But as he crossed the finish line, exhausted but standing, a hush fell over the alien spectators. A human, a supposedly fragile, weak human, had finished one of the most grueling races in the galaxy. As medical staff checked Jack over, Drac approached him again. "Human Jack," the reptilian said with new respect in his voice. "You are stronger than you look." Jack managed a tired smile. "That's true of all humans," he said. "You just haven't noticed yet." The human embassy on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Confederacy, was smaller than most. It was a modest building with earth plants in the garden, and the United Nations flag flying outside. Inside, Ambassador Susan Clark led a team of 20 diplomats and staff. Susan had been a lawyer before becoming a diplomat. She had gray-streaked brown hair and kind eyes that hid a sharp mind. Today she was preparing for an important meeting with representatives from 12 different alien species. "The trade agreement is almost ready," said her assistant, Frank Jones. "If we can get all 12 species to agree today, Earth will finally have access to Confederacy medical technology." Susan nodded. This could save millions of lives back home. The meeting room was large, with seats specially designed for each species. Susan sat at one end of the oval table. Around her were aliens of all shapes and sizes: the insect-like Tricks, the floating gas-bag Beluvians, the silicon-based Krontar, and 9 others. "Thank you all for coming," Susan began. "I believe we are close to an agreement that will benefit all our worlds." The Tricks representative clicked its mandibles. "Humans have proven more adaptable than expected. Your goods may be worth trading for after all." Susan smiled politely, used to such backhanded compliments. "Let's review the final points of the—" A loud explosion cut her off. The room shook violently. Ceiling panels crashed down. Dust filled the air. "What was that?" gasped the Beluvian, its gas sac pulsing rapidly. Before anyone could answer, a second explosion hit. The floor cracked. Tables and chairs tumbled as the room tilted. A support beam fell, blocking the main door. Susan pulled herself up. "Is everyone all right?" The aliens called out in various languages. No one seemed badly hurt, but they were trapped. Susan's assistant Frank tapped at his communicator. "Ambassador, building security reports multiple explosions. Terrorists have attacked the diplomatic sector." "Can they reach us?" Susan asked. Frank shook his head. "The whole section is unstable. Rescue teams can't get in yet." The Krontar representative's crystal body flickered with worried light patterns. "My sensors detect toxic gas seeping in from the damaged ventilation system. It is Vexnar gas, deadly to most species." Panic spread through the room. The Beluvian began to deflate as the gas affected it. The Tricks representative's movements became jerky. Susan quickly assessed the situation. "Frank, check if any parts of our emergency kits survived." Everyone else, Move to the far corner. It seems to have the least gas so far. The group huddled together. Susan examined the blocked doorway and the cracked walls. We may be able to create an exit through that wall, she said, pointing to where the material looked thinner. But we need tools. The grunter dimmed further. None of us can work in these conditions for long. The gas affects us all differently, but it will kill most of us within hours. Susan looked at Frank. Humans have more resistance to toxins than many species. It's from evolving on a world with so many different environments and threats. Frank nodded. I feel awful, but I can still function. Me too. Let's use that advantage. Over the next 36 hours, Susan and her human team worked tirelessly. They fashioned makeshift tools from broken furniture and equipment. They created a partial seal against the gas using cloth and sealant from broken fixtures. They took turns trying to break through the wall, stopping only when absolutely necessary. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans pushed through exhaustion, headaches, and nausea from the gas exposure. How are you still standing? Asked the Trix representative, now barely able to move. We're stubborn, Susan said with a weak smile. And we don't like to fail. By the time they broke through the wall, creating an escape route, 3 of the alien diplomats were unconscious. Susan and Frank, though staggering with fatigue, carried the smallest aliens. They guided the others who could still walk. When they finally reached safety, medical teams rushed to treat everyone. Susan refused treatment until all the aliens were being cared for. The Confederacy Emergency Coordinator looked at her with new respect. You were in there for almost 2 days. Most species would have given up or died. Susan shook her head. We don't give up. Not when lives are at stake. News of the humans' rescue spread quickly through the Confederacy. The diplomatic corps issued a formal statement of gratitude. For the first time, the words "remarkable endurance" appeared in an official Confederacy description of humans. When Susan finally returned to the embassy after recovering, she found messages from all 12 species. The trade agreement had been unanimously approved. A strange illness began to spread across 5 worlds in the Galactic Confederacy. Aliens of different species fell sick with similar symptoms: blue spots on their skin, fever, and trouble breathing. The Confederacy Medical Council called an emergency meeting on their hospital station. Dr. Greg Martinez sat quietly in the back of the room. He was a virologist from Earth, sent to learn from alien medical experts. So far, they had mostly ignored him. The illness has infected over 10,000 individuals from 15 different species, said Dr. Zox, a tall blue alien with 6 eyes. Our treatments are not working. Could it be a new bioweapon? Asked another doctor. No evidence of that, replied Dr. Zox, but we cannot find the source. Greg raised his hand. No one noticed at first. He cleared his throat. Excuse me, he said. Has anyone tested humans for this illness? The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. Humans? Dr. Zox's voice was dismissive. This affects real spacefaring species, not newcomers like you. Greg stood up. I've been studying the reports. The symptoms match a rare Earth virus that was discovered 10 years ago. Humans can carry it without getting sick. Impossible, said Dr. Zox. How could an Earth virus affect so many different alien biologies? It might have mutated, Greg explained. Earth has millions of viruses because our planet has so many different environments. We've developed strong immune systems as a result. The doctors murmured among themselves. Finally, Dr. Zox spoke again. Very well. We will test your theory, human. But I doubt an underdeveloped world like Earth could help solve this crisis. Greg worked day and night in the medical lab. He tested samples from sick aliens and compared them to Earth viruses. After 3 days without sleep, he found what he was looking for. It is a mutated form of the Rodrigo virus, he told the medical council. It has adapted to alien biology through contact with humans. If humans are carriers, said a small green doctor, you are all dangerous to us. Greg shook his head. Not dangerous if we develop a treatment. Human antibodies naturally fight this virus. We can use them to create a cure. Some doctors objected, not wanting to rely on human medicine. But as more aliens fell ill, they had no choice. Greg called Earth and requested samples and research data. He worked with a team of alien doctors to develop a treatment using human antibodies. The aliens were surprised by his knowledge and creative thinking. "Your approach is unorthodox," said Dr. Lin, a reptilian doctor who became Greg's main partner. "Sometimes you need to try unusual methods," Greg replied as he mixed chemicals in a way the aliens had never considered. After 2 weeks of non-stop work, they had a treatment ready for testing. The first patient was a young Trix, an insect-like alien whose condition was critical. Hours after receiving the treatment, the blue spots began to fade. "It works," said Dr. Lin, amazement in her voice. Within days, the treatment was being produced in large quantities and shipped to affected worlds. The death rate from the illness dropped immediately. The Confederacy Medical Council called a special session. Greg sat in the front row this time. "Dr. Martinez," began the head of the council, "your knowledge and methods have saved thousands of lives. The Confederacy acknowledges the contribution of human medical science." Greg nodded respectfully. "Earth has faced countless diseases throughout our history. It forced us to become adaptable." "Perhaps," said the head of the council, "there is more we can learn from humans than we initially believed." After the meeting, Dr. Lin approached Greg. "Several of us would like to establish an exchange program with Earth's medical institutions. Would you help organize this?" Greg smiled. "I'd be honored." When he returned to his quarters that night, Greg found a message from the Confederacy High Council. They had reclassified Earth from a developing world of limited scientific value to a world of significant medical importance. It was a small change in wording, but a giant step forward for humanity's standing in the galaxy. Humans were no longer seen as simply fragile curiosities. They were becoming respected partners. As Greg prepared for bed, his communicator beeped with requests from doctors across the Confederacy wanting to collaborate with him. The galaxy was beginning to see the value in human adaptability and resilience. The Vrakan pirates remembered their defeat at Outpost Horizon. For 2 years, they planned their revenge. Now they returned with a massive fleet of 100 ships, targeting not just one outpost, but all human colonies. "They think we are weak," snarled Crag, the Vrakan war leader. "We will show them true weakness." The first attack came at New Dawn Colony, humanity's largest settlement outside the solar system. Early warning systems gave the colonists only 30 minutes to prepare. Colonel Eric Johnson, head of colony defense, acted quickly. A veteran of Earth conflicts, Eric had steel-gray hair and a calm manner that hid his sharp tactical mind. "Evacuate all civilians to the underground shelters," he ordered. "Defense teams to your positions." The colony had only 5 small defense ships and 200 soldiers against thousands of Vrakan warriors. The odds looked impossible. "Sir, Confederacy forces are 15 hours away," reported his communications officer. "We cannot hold that long." Eric studied the tactical display. "We don't need to defeat them. We just need to make them pay for every inch of ground they take." As the Vrakan ships entered orbit, Eric's team launched their 5 ships directly at the enemy fleet. The Vrakan laughed at what seemed like a suicide mission, but the human ships didn't attack. Instead, they released thousands of small metal objects into space before jumping to safety. When the Vrakan ships tried to enter the colony's atmosphere, their sensors detected the metal objects too late. The simple but effective space mines damaged 30 ships and destroyed 10 more. "Primitive trickery," raged Crag as his fleet regrouped. On the ground, Eric positioned his forces in unusual ways. Instead of defending the colony center, he left it nearly empty. The Vrakan landed their troops and met almost no resistance as they entered the main settlement. "The humans run and hide," laughed a Vrakan commander. "Just as expected." Then Eric sprung his trap. Hidden human soldiers attacked from unexpected directions. They used the colony's water systems to flood areas with Vraken troops. They cut power to sections where the enemy gathered. They used the colony's construction machines as makeshift weapons. The Vraken, used to direct confrontation, were confused by these tactics. They couldn't tell where the next attack would come from. "Fight us properly," shouted a Vraken captain after his unit was ambushed for the third time. "We are fighting," Eric replied through the colony's communication system. "Just not the way you expect." The battle continued for hours. The humans lost ground but made the Vraken pay dearly for each building they captured. Eric's forces used knowledge of the colony's layout to set traps and create choke points where a few defenders could hold off many attackers. Meanwhile, Eric had sent an urgent message to the Confederacy forces. To his surprise, ships from 3 different alien species arrived in just 8 hours instead of 15. "We received your tactical data," said Captain Morn of the Boluvian Defense Force. "Your people's resilience impressed us enough to speed up our response." Together, the human and alien forces drove the Vraken back. Eric coordinated with the Confederacy commanders, teaching them guerrilla tactics that confused and divided the pirates. When Cragg finally ordered a retreat, less than half of his fleet remained. The Vraken had never suffered such losses. After the battle, Eric met with the Confederacy commanders to discuss what had happened. "Your tactics were unusual," said General Zursk of the Trix forces. "You did not fight according to any known military doctrine." "Humans have fought wars against other humans for thousands of years," Eric explained. "We learned that sometimes the smaller force can defeat the larger one through creativity and adaptation." "You used simple machines as weapons," noted Captain Morn. "You turned the colony itself into a battlefield that favored you." Eric nodded. "When you can't match your enemy's strength, you find other advantages." The alien commanders exchanged looks. "The Confederacy would benefit from learning these tactics," said General Zursk. "Would you be willing to teach our forces?" Eric smiled. "I would be honored." Within days, the Confederacy High Command issued a new classification for humanity: species with significant military value. Human officers were requested to help train Confederacy forces in adaptive tactics. The Vraken never attacked human colonies again. Stories spread throughout the galaxy about the humans who defeated a superior force through clever tricks and stubborn determination. The galaxy was learning that while humans might lack natural armor or great strength, their history of conflict had made them formidable warriors. As humans gained respect across the galaxy, many alien species became curious about Earth and its people. The Galactic Confederacy Council invited Professor Mary Adams, a history teacher from Boston University, to give a presentation about human history. Mary was 53 years old with short white hair and bright eyes that showed her passion for history. She had never expected to present to an audience of alien diplomats. "Are you nervous?" asked her friend and translator, Dan Lewis, as they waited outside the Grand Council chamber. "Terrified," Mary admitted, "but also excited. No human historian has ever had this opportunity." The chamber was huge, with seats for representatives of all 28 Confederacy species. Thousands of aliens watched as Mary walked to the center platform. "Respected members of the Confederacy," Mary began, "I am honored to share the story of my species with you today." For the next 2 hours, Mary told the story of human history. She explained how humans evolved on a planet with extreme weather, dangerous predators, and shifting continents. She described early human tribes and their struggle to survive. Then she reached more recent history. She showed images of human wars, from ancient battles with spears to modern conflicts with advanced weapons. The chamber grew silent. Many aliens looked disturbed by what they saw. "Your species fought itself?" asked a Boluvian representative, its gas sac pulsing with emotion. "Yes," Mary said honestly. "Humans have fought over resources, beliefs, and power throughout our history." "How many died in these conflicts?" asked a Trix diplomat. Mary displayed the numbers from Earth's major wars. Gasps echoed through the chamber. And you survived this. The Krontar representative's crystal body flickered with shock. We did more than survive, Mary replied. We learned from our mistakes. We created art and music even in our darkest times. We built institutions to prevent future wars. Mary showed images of human art, from cave paintings to modern masterpieces. She played samples of music from different cultures. She explained human concepts like democracy, human rights, and international cooperation. Humans are complex, she continued. We have capacity for great violence, yes, but also for great compassion. She told stories of humans risking their lives to save others. She showed examples of charities and aid organizations. She explained how humans work together after disasters. As Mary finished her presentation, the council chamber remained quiet. Finally, the Confederacy High Counselor spoke. Professor Adams, your history is troubling. Your species evolved on what we would classify as a death world. You fought countless wars against yourselves. By all logic, humans should have destroyed themselves long ago. Mary nodded. There were many times we nearly did. Yet instead, you stand before us as builders and creators, the High Counselor continued. This contradictory nature makes your species unpredictable. In the days that followed, Mary noticed a change in how aliens treated humans. Some seemed more cautious, even fearful. Videos of her presentation spread across the Confederacy communication networks. I'm worried I made things worse, Mary told Dan as they sat in the embassy garden. Now they think we're dangerous. They needed to understand us, Dan replied. And fear isn't always bad. Sometimes it leads to respect. Indeed, requests for information about human culture increased dramatically. Alien scholars wanted to study Earth literature, philosophy, and art. Music from Earth became popular on some worlds. Human languages were added to Confederacy translation systems. A week after her presentation, Mary received a message from the High Counselor requesting a private meeting. Your history has made us reconsider many assumptions, the alien told her. If humans could survive such a violent past on such a dangerous world, perhaps you have wisdom the rest of us lack. The Confederacy established a cultural exchange initiative focused on Earth. For the first time, alien students began applying to study at Earth universities. Mary herself was asked to serve as the first head of the new Confederacy Historical Institute. Her job would be to help different species understand each other's histories. We were mistaken about humans, the official announcement stated. What we saw as weakness was simply a different kind of strength. What we saw as primitive was the result of evolution in conditions we cannot imagine. As she packed for her new position, Mary smiled at how far humanity had come. From being seen as fragile curiosities to being recognized as survivors of a harsh world, humans were finally finding their place in the galaxy. 5 years had passed since humans first met the Galactic Confederacy. Now, Captain Paul Wilson stood on the bridge of the starship Unity, the first Confederacy vessel with a human commander and a crew of mixed species. Paul was 35 years old with dark hair and steady hands. He had worked hard to earn his position. Now he led a crew of 40 beings from 12 different species. Captain, long-range sensors are picking up strange readings, reported Krill, his tricks science officer. Paul moved to the sensor display. What kind of readings? Unknown energy patterns near the Vega cluster. Krill clicked his mandibles nervously. It appears to be a spatial anomaly. Set course to investigate, Paul ordered. Alert Confederacy Command about our findings. The Unity traveled for 3 days to reach the anomaly. What they found shocked everyone on board. A massive tear in space was growing larger, releasing waves of destructive energy. The anomaly is expanding rapidly, Krill reported. At its current rate, it will reach the Nix system in 30 hours. Paul's face grew serious. How many people live in that system? Approximately 8 billion across 3 planets, replied Murrah, his human first officer. Paul called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. Officers of different species gathered around the conference table. The Confederacy fleet is assembling. But they won't arrive for 48 hours, Paul explained. By then, the Nix system will be destroyed. Can we seal the anomaly? Asked Ziv, the rocky Balorian engineer. Not with any known technology, said Krill. The energy patterns don't match anything in our database. The room fell silent. Then Paul had an idea. On Earth, we had a saying. Sometimes you need to fight fire with fire, he said. What if we created a controlled explosion near the anomaly? That would be suicide, exclaimed Dorn, the reptilian security chief. It could make the tear expand faster. Not if we match the frequency of the energy waves and create a counter-resonance, Paul suggested, like noise-canceling technology, but on a cosmic scale. The alien officers looked confused. This approach didn't follow any standard Confederacy protocol. It's a human thing, Mara explained to her alien colleagues. We look for unconventional solutions when standard ones won't work. Even if it's possible, said Ziv, we would need to get dangerously close to the anomaly to place the explosive devices. I know, Paul replied quietly. That's why I'll take a shuttle to do it myself. His crew protested, but Paul was firm. As captain, I can't order anyone else to take this risk. As Paul prepared the shuttle, his mixed crew worked together to create special explosives that could generate the counter-resonance. Humans worked alongside aliens, combining different scientific approaches. This plan is very human, observed Krill as he helped load the devices. Paul smiled. Is that good or bad? Different, Krill replied. Most species would follow standard procedures, even if they wouldn't work in time. Humans learn to adapt or die, Paul said. When facing extinction, we get creative. Paul piloted the shuttle toward the anomaly. The small craft shook violently as it approached the tear in space. With steady hands, Paul positioned the explosive devices in a precise pattern. Devices planted, he reported to the Unity. Beginning retreat. But the shuttle's engines failed as the anomaly's energy increased. Paul was trapped. Captain, you need to detonate now. Krill's voice came through the communication system. The anomaly is expanding faster than predicted. Paul looked at the detonator in his hand. If he triggered it now, he wouldn't escape the blast. Understood, he said calmly. Take care of the crew. Krill. Paul pressed the button. The explosives detonated in sequence, creating waves of energy that matched and canceled the anomaly's pattern. The tear in space began to shrink. Aboard the Unity, the crew watched in amazement as the anomaly collapsed. Then they saw something unexpected. A small shuttle emerging from the energy cloud, badly damaged but intact. Paul had modified the shuttle's shield at the last moment, creating a protective bubble that barely survived the blast. When he returned to the Unity, the entire crew was waiting in the docking bay. That was a very human solution, said Dorn with new respect in his voice. 3 days later, the Confederacy High Council held an emergency session. They reviewed the Unity's logs and Paul's unconventional tactics. Captain Wilson's actions saved 8 billion lives, announced the High Counselor. His creative thinking and courage exemplify the best qualities of humanity. The Council voted unanimously to create a new classification for humans, guardian species, beings whose unique perspectives made the galaxy safer for all.